Hi, this is Tony Ward speaking, and I'm an Associate Professor of Health and Counselling Psychology at the University of the West of England. In this short presentation, I'd like to tell you a little bit about some work we've been doing on using Second Life to enhance the student experience in psychology. This work has been done with various colleagues here at the university, including Liz Falconer and Manuel Frutos Perez, who were both in the Education Innovation Centre. The work was partly sponsored by the Higher Education Academy through a teaching development grant. Before going on to describe our work, it's worth mentioning that there has been previous work done on the use of Second Life in psychology. So, for example, Dancy et al. Looked at the use of a virtual psychology conference centre and tutorial rooms. More similar to our own work, Simon Bignell and colleagues at the University of Derby and also Aston have looked at a project using a simulation which you can see here on the right hand side called the Problem House. And in the Problem House, students can wander around and interview various avatars about the issues that they're facing, and that is the task that the students are set to try and work out what the various issues are that the different characters are grappling with. In the work we are describing here, we developed 3 different scenarios, all of which are intended to try and encourage psychology undergraduates to think about the issue of employability. So, for example, the first scenario is a supermarket. Here at UE, we encourage our students to engage in work-based learning, and some of them may well choose to do this within a supermarket setting. So within this virtual scenario, the students engage with the personnel manager and the marketing manager, both of whom give them tasks to do out on the shop floor, and when they've finished they go to the virtual computer room at the back of the store to report their findings through the computer to head office. And of course that also allows us to check the learning which has taken place. In the counselling agency, students first of all are briefed by the counselling centre manager, who you can see here, and they then go off and observe a therapy session, and they get to interview a new client about their issues. The therapy session they observe just happens to be based on a real case from the work of Carl Rogers. In the Dragon's Den scenario, the students, in the way we did this, worked in teams to come up with an entrepreneurial idea based in psychology, which they then pitched to a group of dragons in a typical Dragon's Den type scenario. You can see here when we did this with some of our students, we used historical avatars such as Beck and Freud, and just to add in a playful element, we also had a real fire-breathing dragon. Quite reasonable numbers of participants took place in this work to help us evaluate it, and you will notice that in each case we evaluated the scenario against a face-to-face equivalent, and we worked very hard to try and ensure that the face-to-face condition was as similar as possible as we could make it to the Second Life scenario. The evaluation then was generally in terms of a student satisfaction scale. In the Dragon's Den we also used a short entrepreneurial efficacy scale which we developed ourselves since we couldn't find something suitable in the literature. And in the supermarket and counselling agency scenarios we also were able to look at the final computerised checkout to see how much the students picked up from the scenarios. So the student satisfaction scale which we use throughout in all of these evaluations is a short 8-item questionnaire which had very good test-retest reliability and a very high Cronbach's alpha. We also had a similar scale, as I mentioned, for enterprise with 5 items. Again, very good retest reliability and a very high Cronbach's alpha. So to evaluate the scenarios, we compared the face-to-face and Second Life scenarios across the student satisfaction questionnaire, and as you can see, for several items in relation to Second Life versus face-to-face, there is a significant difference. This is a result of t-tests comparing the two conditions. So on item 4 there's a significant difference. I would like to see more of this kind of activity. And item 5, I found the activity easy and non-threatening, and the overall scale total also comes out as significantly different. So there is a significant advantage to the supermarket scenario. We also did 1 sample t-tests to see whether each question tended to shift towards a significant positive direction, and as you can see across face-to-face and Second Life, that is generally the case, with some notable exceptions. So question 1, for example, wasn't rated significantly in a positive direction. The mean's round about the neutral mid-score of 3. So students didn't feel that it had helped them to understand theory better necessarily. Similarly, in question 8, neither face-to-face or Second Life were coming out in a significant positive direction. Scores round about neutral. Question 8, I felt I learned a lot from the activity, which is a bit disappointing. In the counselling centre results, there were no differences between face-to-face and Second Life, and virtually all the items were rated in a significant positive direction. In the Dragon's Den, again, no difference between face-to-face and Second Life, and most items being rated in a significant positive direction. Again, with the exception of question 8, I felt I learned a lot from the activity. Given that these were quite short activities, which took place within about 45 to 50 minutes, it may be asking a lot to expect students to feel that they learned a lot from an activity. Looking at the entrepreneurial questions from the Dragon's Den, no difference face-to-face versus Second Life. Most items, virtually all items, significantly rated in a positive direction, with the exception of question 4. I'm more likely to consider psychology applications in business when I graduate. So clearly students have enjoyed and engaged with this activity, but it hasn't pushed them in the direction of wanting to become budding entrepreneurs when they graduate. Looking at the quiz scores in the counselling scenario, students achieved 96 versus 93%. Clearly it wasn't difficult for students to find the information we were wanting them to look for within the scenarios. In the supermarket scenario, 94 versus 93%, and there were no significant differences in either scenario. So in both Second Life and face-to-face, students engaged with the scenarios and found answers to the issues we'd asked them to look for. So our conclusions then are that these Second Life activities are equivalent to similar activities carried out face-to-face. However, the supermarket scenario showed a significant advantage on several items and overall, and we feel that this may be because this complicated problem-based scenario worked better online, where there were lots of contextual cues that enhanced the students' feeling that they were immersed in the scenario. And this is something which is quite difficult to create within a classroom type environment, although clearly it's more plausible face-to-face for the counselling work and the Dragon's Den. This is encouraging because it suggests that students may well benefit from using Second Life to extend their learning outside of the classroom, and of course this could be very encouraging for being able to use this kind of technology in working with distance-based students. Future work that we are doing at UE in Second Life at the minute, we have created avatars which look like famous psychotherapists such as Carl Rogers, which students can use to attempt to simulate classic psychotherapy. And we also can stage debates between classic psychotherapists where students have to articulate through the avatar a particular view about how to work with a particular client. So here we can see Rogers and Beck and Freud all lined up. Okay, I hope that you have found this short presentation interesting, and I thank you for your time.